What is up, guys? Our content, I'm bringing you guys another YouTube video. This video is going to be talking about the mid-season elemental patch, where they try to clean up some of the heroes they added in the elemental introduction patch. But before we get into it, I want to ask you guys to like the video if you guys find it informative or useful, so that somebody else may stumble upon it and also get the same usefulness out of it. Because I cover a multitude of games, my videos tend to get buried pretty quickly underneath the algorithm. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about it. This patch is coming out tomorrow, the 15th, and the first thing up is Bartendotron has been removed from the Battlegrounds. I'm not surprised, considering there's two other heroes that have better Tavern tier interactions with their hero powers, one being Groot and the other being Shenvala. I can't think of Groot's name. I'm drawing a blank there, I apologize. But he's basically the one where when you level up a Tavern tier, you get 2 gold back for leveling up. And then Shenvala obviously is the elemental hero where after you play 3 elementals, you reduce the cost of the Tavern tier. First up on the chopping block is Ragnaros the Fire Lord, and everybody knew this was coming. I said it back in the elemental introduction patch that Ragnaros seemed that he would be the strongest out of all the new heroes being added to the game. I wasn't wrong. +8/+8 for free every turn is just insanely broken, especially mid to late game. He just runs people over, and you just win the game easy. Anyway, the new hero power is after you kill 25 minions, you get Sulfuras. So they're increasing by 5. I think this is a pretty good change. Honestly, I think it's going to make him have to wait a turn, maybe 2, depending on what he ran into. I think another good change that they could add is give some type of indicators for the other players in the lobby to see how many minions he needs in order to get his Sulfuras, and then they can play around him accordingly if they choose to. You could choose to lose around it, but not give him as many minion kills that he would need in order to get Sulfuras, maybe delayed an extra turn even. The new hero power is, at the end of your turn, give your left and rightmost minion +3/+3 instead of +4/+4. So you're getting 6/6 instead of 8/8, and we'll see how hard of a hit that is. I think the extra 5 is going to potentially make it to where he has a bit rougher of a time if he gets unlucky in the mid game. He could easily be knocked out before he can start scaling into the late game. Maiev is up next. Imprison old make a minion in Bob's Tavern dormant after 2 turns, get it with +1/+1. The new one is make a minion in Bob's Tavern dormant after 2 turns, get it with +1 attack. So this is a hit to Maiev's early game, because what you would do with Maiev typically is you look for a token. If you can get a token, you'd sell it, use the hero power on another minion that they give you, and then you Tavern tier up, and then on turn 3, you would be able to buy a minion, get the +1/+1 buffed minion, and have your token on board. You'd have 3 minions, and then you could roll 1 if you wanted to, and then you could imprison as well. And, save for the next turn. And then on turn 7, you'd be able to go to Tavern Tier 3, buy a minion, and get your Tavern Tier 2 minion or whatever you chose with the +1/+1 buff, and it would give you a pretty good early game, essentially, is what it was. And with this is basically removing that. You're no longer going to be as strong as you were in the early game. That +1 health is actually a big deal, believe it or not, in the early game with how breakpoints work. Typically, having that extra health and that extra attack probably lets you trade your minion for 2 of their minions, which again is a big deal. This won't affect Maiev in the late game, because Maiev is just using the hero power in the late game to otherwise buy a minion and not freeze the board that she wants. Let's say there's only 1 minion you'd want on the board, but you don't want to freeze, so you'd use the Maiev hero power instead. Shenvala, Avalanche. Old, after you play 3 elementals, reduce the cost of upgrading Bob's Tavern by 2. New, after you play 3 elementals, reduce the cost of upgrading Bob's Tavern by 3. They have to be really careful about buffing this, honestly. Especially with cards like Elemental on 1, which gives you 2 charges of the hero power, so you could actually Elemental on 1, potentially. Then from there, you could level up to 2, and if you happen to get lucky with your refresh and you see another Elemental, you could buy that on turn 3, and then that would give you 3 down on your next Tavern tier. You could sell this Elemental, have 1 charge extra, so you'd only need 2 more, and then on 7 gold, you could buy 2 minions and go to Tavern tier 3. So, and like I said, have 2 charges ready in order to knock down the cost to go to 4 by 3. So you gotta be really careful about buffing this, because Shenvala can get out of hand. It's kind of reminding me a little bit of the Millhouse effect, where Millhouse was able to buy a bunch of minions, but he also didn't have that Tavern tier upgrade until like mid-patch or mid-season or whatever for Pirates, I think it was, or was it Dragons? If you recall, Millhouse was just so dominant, he would always be on like Tavern Tier 5 or 6 when everybody else was on 3, and he just would just steamroll the game. I feel like Shenvala is in a position where that could also be something that could happen easily. Patchwork, all patched up. Start with 50 health instead of 40. New, start with 55 health instead of 40. I feel like they could probably just revert him back to what he was before, where you start with 60. Because Patchwork's biggest strength is that you can use his health in order to scale minions late game. Everybody else nowadays, though, has hero powers that directly impact the game, like Ragnaros is giving stat buffs. Maiev is still giving stat buffs to a degree. Shenvala is able to Tavern Tier up faster than everybody else, which gives her access to more powerful minions than what everybody else is running with. Stuff like that. It directly impacts the game. Whereas Patchwork, they nerfed Murlocs, which was one of his big win conditions, because he could trade that extra 20 health or 10 health or whatever to try to scale Murlocs with Megasaur and then just win with, Divine Shield Poisonous. That no longer exists. That's gone. Elementals are pretty strong. I haven't had a lot of time to play, but I have been watching other people play. And they seem pretty strong, so maybe now you give up a bit more health to try to scale Elementals and try to go from there. Maybe that's a new strategy with Patchwork, but I don't think having him on 60 health would be that big of a deal since his hero power doesn't directly affect the game state, like what a lot of the newer ones do in such an impactful way. Nergosa, Stay Frosty. Old, at the end of your turn, frozen minions get +1/+1. New, at the end of your turn, frozen minions get +2/+1. This is interesting. They nerfed Maiev early game, and then they give Nergosa a even stronger early game, essentially. So what you're probably going to see with Nergosa is you buy on 1, you freeze what's left. On Tavern Tier 2, or on turn 2, you level up to 4, freeze again, and then on 3, when you have 5 gold, what you would do is you'd buy 1 minion, obviously, freeze again, and then on 6, you then do the same thing. And then you get, on turn 6, potentially the minion that you froze 3 turns in a row would be 6/3 worth of stats on top of what it already was before. I could easily see this getting out of hand. I know they don't want to give health. They don't want to give a lot of health because health is what keeps minions on the board, obviously, which lets them trade better than what they should be able to trade for. But giving an extra bit of strength also tends to have the same effect, whether they want to have that effect or not. They have to be really careful. They nerfed Maiev for a reason, and honestly, I think Maiev's hero power had a bit more flexibility to it than what Nergosa does, because you're committing to the freeze with Syndra, whereas on Maiev you're not. You're still able to roll a fresh board and try to get new minions. This is going to be interesting to keep an eye on. Nergosa is going to be a really strong early game champion, I think, now. King Mukla now has a chance to give King Mukla a big banana that gives a minion +2/+2. I wish they would actually give us the percent, so that way we had an educational guess to go on in terms of how good he's going to be. Because right now, without the information on the chance percent, it doesn't seem like it's that good. Usually Blizzard's chances are quite low, or like 30 or 40%. Now has a chance, so I just don't like the direction they're going with Mukla. I think that he should have also been removed along with Bartendotron, and they could rework him and try to come up with something better. Because once you start doing this, and you start going down this path, it opens up a whole world of problems. Because now certain heroes are balanced based on how good they are, if they get the optimal outcome, compared to what they don't get the optimal outcome. And it just opens up a gigantic can of worms, and it makes the game feel even worse, honestly. Because if you don't get the 2/2, you're still getting 2/2 worth of stats, but you're not getting 3/3 worth of stats. And you're giving everybody else +1/+1. I think the buff would have been to just not give everybody in the lobby an extra banana. I think that would have been the buff. That would have made this feel better instead of giving him an extra +1/+1 that offsets their +1/+1. Oh, and it's like I said, it's a chance of that happening. They just need to go back to the drawing board on Mukla. I don't think he's in a good state right now. So on to minion updates. Whirlwind Tempest has been removed from the Battlegrounds. If I remember correctly, Whirlwind Tempest was the 4/1 with Divine Shield as well as Wind Fury. And Pogo Hopper has been removed from the Battlegrounds as well. I also said in the patch that introduced the Groot to the game, I can't think of her name, but it's the one that whenever you buy a minion, you can play it, and then you can swap it with a minion in Bob's Tavern. I said that Pogos would probably be a really, really strong combo with her, and lo and behold, they were really, really strong, because what she'd do is she'd buy Pogos, she'd use Hero Power on Pogo, buy Pogo again, play Pogo, and she'd be able to get 2 Pogo activations for 1 turn. And then, it would just get out of hand, and she'd be like insanely strong in the early. especially if she could somehow find her way onto a gold pogo by staying on 2. Selfless Hero is getting moved from Tavern Tier 1 to Tavern Tier 2. I think that what this is them not committing to a single nerf. I don't think they wanted to remove Pogo. I think they ended up deciding to remove Pogo, but they're still going to go through with this change for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. Because Selfless Hero, from my understanding, only enabled the Pogo build. Maybe you could also make an argument for Divine Shield Murlocs as well still. Divine Shield Poisonous Murlocs. But anyway, interesting to see Selfless Hero be moved to 2. Deadly Spore is being moved from 4 to 5. At this point, I think you might as well just make cards with the poisonous effect on 6. There's already 2 of them in the form of, Amalgam as well as Maxana. Or Maxana. I think that this should also go to 6. And honestly, I think that Toxfin should probably be either removed from the game or moved to 6 and also come with poisonous and give the ability to give poisonous to a Murloc. I think that that would help make Murlocs feel a little less frustrating to go against once they reach Tavern Tier 4, because right now Murlocs they're still really, really strong if you get lucky with, a brand triple or something. Because what happens is they get a bunch of health and then they get poisonous and then you can't touch them. They're still untouchable. The problem with Megasaur was that once you got to 6, it was an automatic win condition. You could easily transition to Murlocs. And now you have to put a little bit more time into it. So I don't know where Murlocs are at. But honestly, I feel like all poisonous cards should be in that 6 tier bracket because poison is such a big and powerful effect. Salty Looter. Old, 3 attack, 3 health. New, 4 attack, 4 health. So it's just a buff to Salty Looter stats to make him feel a little bit better when you buy him on Tavern Tier 3, because most 2 minions can actually run over a 3-3. You don't happen to play a pirate with him. And once he's on 3, if you buy him and you're able to buy another pirate, this gives him 5-5 worth of stats, which makes him really, really strong for a Tavern Tier 3 minion. Bloodsail Cannoneer is getting an extra health, it looks like. Not really going to be that big of a deal. It's still going to trade into Tavern Tier 2 minions, 1-for-1 most cases, because it looks like they're also buffing Party Elemental here to be a 3-2. So this doesn't really change anything. When cards like this are being buffed to still be 3 attack and still trade even. It looks like another Tavern Tier 3 minion's getting an extra health, but that's offset by Tavern Tier 2 minions having access to attack cards anyway. Majordomo Executus. Old. At the end of your turn, give your leftmost minion +1/+1 for each elemental you played this turn. At the end of your turn, give your leftmost minion +1/+1 repeat for each elemental you played this turn. I'm not sure why they're changing this, because if you play 7 elementals before in the old hero power, or the old, sorry, not the old hero power, but the old effect, you'd get +7/+7. Whereas if you play 7 elementals now, it just repeats the +1/+1 buff 7 times. You still get +7/+7, unless when you get a gold Executus, because we're not seeing the gold card here, this repeats twice. If this repeats twice, then this is going to be insanely strong, because what's going to happen is it's going to be +2/+2, so you're going to get 14/14 using the example of 7 elementals, and then it'll repeat again, which would be another 14/14, so you'd be getting 28/28 worth of stats on your leftmost minion. Not sure if that's why they're buffing him, to indirectly make him better as a gold card, or if this has something to do with all the lag that's going on in the client, and this is the fix that they had for the lag. I don't know. Without seeing the gold version of Majordomo and seeing how the repeat is affected if it happens twice or once, it'll be interesting to see. If it's like Parrot, because Parrot actually has a repeat effect as well for Deathrattles, where it does say it repeats twice. So Domo could be interesting on 4. Easily, make him into a discount Ragnaros where you play a bunch of elementals and you just get a bunch of stats from it on your leftmost minion. It'll be interesting to play around with, I'm sure. Old Tavern Tier 5, Little Rag. 4 attack, 4 health. New Tavern Tier 6, 6 attack, 6 health. After you play an elemental, give a friendly minion stats equal to the elemental Tavern Tier. The effect is still the same. The only thing changing is the tier and the stats. So +2/+2. So this is kind of interesting. Little Rag was really, really strong. You could easily buy like 5 cost or 6 cost elementals, buy like 2 or 3 of them, and then play them and get easily 15/15 worth of stats in one turn on a random elemental. Or I'm sorry, on a random friendly minion. Not linked to elementals. For some reason I thought it was linked to elementals and it's not. But anyway, I could easily see this getting out of hand. Domo is probably going to be like Little Rag. If you can get a gold Domo, it's going to be similar. Rag is on 6, so that means something's coming out of the 6th tier, and it's going to be Gentle Jin. So Taunt Deathrattle, it's summon a random elemental and add a copy of it to your hand. It's still the same. It just lost stats, so now it's a 4/5 instead of a 6/8, which means it's going to die more, and you're going to actually get value out of it. Whereas at 8 health, there's actually things that don't run it over in the late game on 6. This is kind of a buff to Domo when you think about it, because that means there's going to be more Djinns in the pool, and you're going to be able to get more elementals to your hand. And if you read the hero power, it's not for each elemental you fought this turn, it's each elemental played this turn. So you could do a strategy where you hang on to a couple elementals, buy a couple elementals, and have 6 elementals in hand, or 7 or whatever, and then play them all at once. And depending on what they give you, you may even be able to get like anywhere from 8 to 9 to 10 elementals in a turn. And if you have a golden Domo, and this happens to repeat twice, that would be +20, +20. Or that'd be 40/40 worth of stats. Like, that would be just insane. It'd be one turn, obviously, for one minion. You wouldn't be able to do it all the time, but I still think it would be pretty strong. So, all in all, I think there's some head-scratching changes here, and then there's some changes where Blizzard is just out of their mind. So Ragnaros, he's getting nerfed. It's good to see. This should make it to where Ragnaros probably has to wait maybe a turn or two, depending on. I still think that they should add a counter to Selfless next to Ragnaros' name, so you can keep track of how many minions he needs in order to get it, so you can play around it efficiently if you wanted to. Not saying everybody will, but the option's there. It puts more power in the player's hands. +3/+3 instead of +4/+4, so he won't scale as hard as quick. Still is going to scale. He's still going to be a mid to late game terror, I believe, or at least a late game terror, depending on what he's buffing with that. Maiev is getting the early game nerfed. In the late game, this change doesn't matter. Shenvala may be the new Ragnaros of the patch, depending on just how strong this change is. Because like I said, with all the elementals being moved around, and Jhin being moved to 5, that could easily mean that, Shenvala gets a Salamental off the Jhin hero power and is able to just transition into 6 the next turn after going to 5. Like, you have to be real careful when you do this. And if you happen to get a Jhin off of a golden 4 or on 4, you are pretty much going to be able to go, like I said, to 5 and 6 easily, no problem. And you're going to be there 2 turns, or at least 2 or 3, or maybe even 4 or 5 turns ahead of like everybody else. It's going to depend on what elementals obviously you get off the Jhin. And again, this is just me speculating. And I haven't had a whole lot of time to play the elemental patch, but I do know that there are elemental cards that you can get that will give you access to more elemental cards when you play the one from your hand. So, interesting to see how this goes. Like I said, Shenvala could be the big MVP of the patch. That would be my guess. Patchwork, I think he just needs to go back to 60, revert the nerf, go back to 60. He doesn't have a hero power that's as strong as when he first came into the game. A lot more hero powers have been added that just affect the game state in such a impactful way that having that extra 20 health really, or 15 health in this case, isn't going to help him that much. He's going to lose that easy. So Nergosa is going to be a early game terror. She's basically going to be a stronger Maiev. Less flexibility on the hero power, you're committing to whatever you're freezing, but at the end of the day, it's not going to matter when you're able to level up Tavern Tiers because you have, 6/3 worth of stats, something crazy like that, or 4/2 worth of stats to buff your minions up with. King Mukla, go back to the drawing board, just remove him, put him in the bin with Pretendotron. They can have a banana split together. And never, ever, ever, ever bring RNG back to a hero power, please. It's just not good. Even Barov, or whatever his name is, that gambles, you can make an educated guess as to who's going to win the fight. So it's not really a chance. It's more of an educated guess as to who's going to win. This is just flat up RNG, and that's not good for the game, in my opinion. It's just not. Keep it to the minion cards that play, like, Selfless Hero randomly buffing a minion with the Divine Shield. Pogo Hopper, executed from the patch. Whirlwind Tempest, executed as well. Selfless Hero, I feel like these nerfs are coming because, or this change is coming because of Pogos, and they just forgot to remove or revert the change, unless there's some other strategy I'm missing where you go Selfless Hero Elementals maybe, and then you just give all your Elementals Divine Shield, because like I said, I do know that they can scale out of control, so maybe it was Pogo and Elementals. Deadly Spore, Going to 5, I'm fine with. A Poisonous is a powerful effect in the game, and it usually trades 2 for 1 in some cases. Good to see this. Honestly, I think all of them should be on 6, to be fair. You have to give it more stats. Pirates are getting a little bit more viability. Form of Salty Looter getting a buff, so you know he has better breakpoints and he trades better, and you're not going to lose on Tavern Tier 3 for going Pirates early. Bloodsilk Cannoneer change doesn't matter. There's too many Tavern Tier 2 minions that trade into a 3/3 or a 3 health minion. Party Elemental is going to be one of them now. Arcane Assistant, same thing, gets an extra health, doesn't matter, irrelevant. Domo could potentially be broken if the golden version duplicates this effect twice. You could easily give a minion +40/+40 in one turn and just scale it out of control. So Domo is also going to be a major winner of the patch. Little Rag gets moved to 6, and Jin gets moved to 5, which is another buff to Shenvala in a way. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you enjoyed me talking about the patch. Let me know what you guys think. What's your opinion on everything? Where do you guys think everything's going to lay by the end of this? Hindsight's great, isn't it? I'm sure in hindsight somebody's going to come into the video 2 weeks later and be like, well, this happened instead. And I'm going to be like, yeah, hindsight's fun. And I'm probably overlooking something. But, you know, that's how things go. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like I said at the beginning of the video, guys, like the video if you enjoyed it, if you found it informative. So that way other people can find the video and maybe they'll also find it informative. Thanks for watching. Can't wait to see what you guys have to say down below, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Later.